Is Apple Spotlight the biggest competitor to Google's mobile search engine? Happy 10th birthday to Twitter. And it's one step for Dixon and one giant leap for mankind. Oh, that and more on This Week in Organic, episode number 41.
This Week's in Organic. Live from London on thisweekinorganic.com.
Broadcasting live at authoritas.com/TWiO, you're watching This Week in Organic, the weekly show that debates the ramifications of the latest SEO and content marketing news. Sign up to watch the next show live at thisweekinorganic.com. Hello and welcome, I'm David Bain, and each week I'll be joined by some knowledgeable, opinionated folks to discuss the latest happenings and anything that impacts organic traffic. And as for you in the live audience, get involved. Click on the tweets or the post buttons to your left-hand side and share the show with your own followers and tell us what you think of what's being discussed in the comment section to the right-hand side, and I'll try and read out as many comments as I can. But let's find out more about today's guests, where they're from, and what's caught their attention this week. So starting off with Matteo.
So hi, hello everybody. My name is Matteo Monari. I run an online marketing agency in Rome called BizUp, and we work a lot in competitive niches and at the international level. So we look a lot at links and backlink profiles, and what caught my eyes this week was for sure the good link bait that Majestic has just pulled off. Since it was, quite a quiet week last week in terms of, updates or big declarations or big statements from the search engine. So no real big technical news, I would say. But there was this. It was then probably the good moment for Majestic to release the big link bait idea they had.
You want to make sure that you don't get dwarfed by other news out there. So perhaps they've done that well. Yeah, great. Okay, we look forward to talking about that. Also with us today is Peter.
Hi, I'm Peter. I'm the SEO and content manager at icelolly.com, which is a holiday search comparison website for those who don't know. And today I'm particularly interested in the topic about Google now introducing a feature to customize your news sources, which is interesting.
Great. We'll look forward to hearing more about that as well. And finally, also with us today is Marcus.
Yeah, hi folks. I'm Marcus. I'm an SEO since the 90s. Actually started out doing SEO for Alta Vista and Excite. And when Google started in Germany in 2000, I basically grew up with them and their algorithms. Never been a big consulting guy, more like a affiliate, been a super affiliate for the longest time of my life. But for the past 4 years, we went into a new venture. I'm actually the CEO and co-founder of onpage.org, with a leading technical SEO software out there. Quite an interesting ride. We have 42 people now here in Munich, all very technical SEO savvy, and just having a lot of fun. Just having that tool and getting the people excited about doing the technical SEO right.
Wonderful, yeah. I mean, that's very, very impressive, doing technical SEO for Alta Vista. I mean, I remember using Alta Vista, but not doing SEO for Alta Vista.
Well, that was easy, right? It was just white text on white. Like whoever had the most words on this page just got the highest rank result, and you do it with white font and white background. That's all you needed to do, right?
I went a little bit further than that. I did white font on a black background, but with a white tiled image. So it's slightly more...
Very sophisticated.
Very proper SEO techniques.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, moving on to topic number one, and that is Apple's Spotlight. Could that actually be a competitor to Google's mobile search engine in the future? Because at the moment, we've got Google serving about 90% of mobile search in the USA, 94% in the UK, and 97% in Australia. However, perhaps Google might not actually have all things their own way actually in the future, because Search Engine Land reported today that Google are now developing a keyboard hoping to boost its mobile search volumes, perhaps, actually. So why are Google doing this? And perhaps is this intended as some kind of competition against Apple's Spotlight search? Matteo, have you got any thoughts on this one in particular?
Yes, I think that right now we can't really talk about Spotlight as a competitor to Google, but in terms of web search at least. But when it comes to the usage of mobile, there is, of course, a lot of people using Spotlight, and also due to the fact that that is basically the search engine, let's say, that is used by Siri. And I think especially the youngest generations are using a lot Siri when they search. And when it comes to using their phone and using Spotlight, I don't think people should really be worried about, how do I optimize for Spotlight, because that would be really overkill. But I think one interesting point is that basically, if you look at Spotlight, it does more or less what Google does inside Chrome when you're using Android. That mixes the results. You have at the same time apps from the App Store and web results. And that's the same thing that you have now in Google, basically, if you do a deep linking within the apps in Android. So, this basically made even more important now to also take care of the deep linking activities and optimize the name of your apps, for example, so that when people look for, sport results, if you have an app called Sports Results, then it also shows up in the Spotlight, for example, as it would inside Google on Android with the direct link to download the app. So I think this is the main thing people should really think about considering Spotlight. I don't think one should really be worried about, the Spotlight algorithm, let's say.
Okay. Because obviously its primary listings, or its initial listings that it has in the iPhone at the moment, is pages within apps that you've already installed, certainly.
Yes, we also have suggestions to download.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Peter, have you actually got an app that you're using for iSlolly at the moment?
We do, yes. We actually recently rebuilt that a little bit because it was a bit bugged before, but it's primarily updated for iOS at the moment, so we will certainly need to look at that.
And from an SEO perspective, do you have any involvement with the naming of different sections within that?
Very little, to be honest. Our app is quite in its infancy at the moment, I would say. It needs a lot of looking at, and I think it needs rebuilding to actually provide users more functionality than just basic search. Right now, our app doesn't do anything that our website already does, basically. So as far as I'm concerned, there's very little reason for people to actually use the app, because you could just as well just visit the website. But that's something we're looking at for the near future. It's just not the highest priority that we have at the moment.
So as someone who's obviously involved with SEO, do you think you're going to have a more active involvement in the app development in the future?
Possibly, but more from a marketing angle. I think there are other colleagues that are much better suited to work on the app, especially for iOS, because I'm a complete non-Apple user. So I'm as far as an expert as humanly possible, really.
Marcus, you don't think Google should have any concerns about searching on a device directly to find apps at the moment?
I didn't get the question, but I mean, should they be concerned? I mean, of course, iPhone users are a very valuable target group. They're likely to have a little bit more money. We see this especially with running ads on Android to iPhone users, and it's just a more juicy target audience. But on the bright side for Google, they have Android, and right, this is like 80% of the market share is all Android, and it's only 20%. Or even less if that Apple owns in this space. So it's not like a big competitor. Of course, they will love this traffic, and I think they paid like $1 billion for being the search engine, for still being the search engine on iPhones. So of course it's very important for them. But again, they have Android, so they couldn't care less actually. In regards to SEO, it's very lame because I mean, like most of Spotlight search is like the knowledge graph kind of information you're looking to find. And of course, like local businesses and stuff like this, it's just external third-party data pulled from Yelp or whatever. So this is not really a SEO topic. It's more like a pretty much comparable to something like a local search thing on Google, as well as, of course, with the knowledge graph integrations like Wikipedia and stuff like this. So this is not really an SEO thing. So this is why I don't really pay that much interest to what Apple is doing with Spotlight. Okay, sure. Google is still my number one.
So sorry, Google was.
Google is my number one. I showed
one.
This like as a victory, but not number two. Like number one.
It's
definitely number one.
It's certainly number one just about in every well, in most markets around the world, apart from Baidu and Yandex and other countries like that. But it's intriguing because I was reading another article recently that showed that desktop searches peaked in 2013, and since then it's been going down certainly, and obviously more recently Google have announced that mobile searches overall have surpassed desktop searches. And Google with Android have obviously had an eye on this for some time, and are certainly thankful that they control about 80% of mobile devices. But have they got the quality, or is the quality over an iPhone? I guess we'll see. Over the next couple of years will be fairly intriguing. Do any of you have clients that still focus on desktop and have the majority focus on desktop at the moment?
Well, I just think that, like, well, all our clients focus also heavily on desktop, because what happened really is not that like mobile searches are cannibalizing on desktop searches. What happens is that people just search more. So of course you will have some moments in which a lot of people will search from the mobile, like when they're home on the sofa in the evening watching TV, for example, during the ads. And then during the day when they're at work, you will most likely have searches from the desktop. So even the sites that have a lot of mobile traffic, they, at least as far as our clients are concerned, they don't have the traffic as an alternative to the desktop traffic. That traffic has been growing as an additional kind of traffic over the years. So also in general, right now, the first thing we do when we have a client and we discuss about optimizing his site is discussing the fact that his site is just one main site. So normally we have sites with responsive designs that we optimize for them. So we don't really look at mobile versus desktop, if not when we look at bounce rates and different ways that people use the website and see if there is any issue in design and in the customer journey within the site, for example. But otherwise, we look at it as just one single property that has to be optimized all around the devices, basically.
Okay. One other story that caught my eye this week actually was the fact that you can now tell, Google Now, or if you're using Google Now as a user, you can tell them which sources for stories you don't actually want to receive information for. And it struck me that this could be quite telling actually for Google in terms of the quality and relevance of news sources and blog sources in the future, and perhaps Google may make some kind of ranking decisions in the future based upon feedback like this from users. Matteo, do you think that signals like this, decisions like this by users may impact rankings in the future?
I think that this very specific kind of decision will not impact rankings, because Google Now is heavily customized based on the singular user. So, just because you don't want to see something in Google Now, it doesn't mean that is not good in general. And it's more telling Google, hey, Google, you thought that you knew me, and based on how much you thought you knew me, you went and picked this news source. But guess what? You were wrong. I do not like this news source personally. But I don't think, this I think is as far as possible from being a heavy signal, I would say.
I mean, there was talk a few years ago, obviously, of social signals being incorporated as part of Google's algorithm, but it never seemed to really materialize. Marcus, do you think that we'll get to a stage over the next few years where user signals and user voting becomes a significant part of Google's algorithm, or do you think that's unlikely?
No, this is the only thing. This is all what it's about, and not in the distant future. This is where we are right now. It's not that you with a little bit of authority and like good on-page SEO, you get a chance, you get a glimpse of the first page, but then you got to perform. People are like casting a vote with every single search they do, with every single interaction, clicking to any of the sites, interacting with the sites, staying on sites, the whole user journey along their searches. So this is all what Google is doing, and the whole stuff with with the machine learning. And I think it's especially telling, Amit Singhal, who had a sort of philosophical bias against the use of machine learning in the field of search quality. And now you have Gian Andrea coming in, who oversees Google's work in artificial intelligence. I think you see a momentous shift in how Google, and I think the industry as a whole, approaches these things. That it's rather, that learning those things rather than writing code will just be much more. You can scale this so much easier, right? And this is where Google is at right now. And so it's all about the users, all about the user signals, every single signal. And it's not about like individual ranking factors anymore. It's about what makes users happy. And this can be different in each vertical, in each keyword, in each niche. In every single search, it can be completely different, also personalized and whatever, right? So this is where we are right now. It's all about the user and not about individual ranking factors. And I think it's exhausting to talk about, social signals. Are they a part in the ranking factor? Who cares, right? It's traffic. It's traffic to my site, and then people like my site. Google is getting those signals, and my site may eventually rank better if I really supply a sufficient answer for what people are searching for. So it's really, again, exhausting to talk about individual ranking factors. It's about the big thing, and this is what makes users happy, because this is what Google tries to find out every single search.
It's a great point that user signals aren't just kind of active things that users vote for. They're, watching what users do, and obviously making decisions on rankings based on that. So yeah, absolutely, great point there. It was funny actually. I saw a tweet by Gary Iles this week, and he said he was meeting, I think, some Google engineers, and one of the first questions they asked was about RankBrain rather than RankBrain, they called it.
Because Brian had a little back and forth with Gary. I think this also happened at SMX Munich, and this was quite fun to watch from the outside. And we had a good laugh at our podcast, actually, Weapons on the Roof. Yeah, it was quite nice.
Right. I didn't make it to SMX Munich. Okay, so it's the continuation of a joke then.
Yeah, a little bit.
So what about RankBrain itself, Marcus? Is that something that can be treated as something by itself? Or do you think because it's machine learning and probably encompassing loads of different factors, it's not going to be what traditional SEO was about, really? It's going to be something completely different.
Oh, well, with RankBrain specifically, it's more about, machine-powered assistance for the hummingbird, right? Because you said it before with Google wanting to release like a keyword. Most of the searches right now are happening with people talking to their phones, and it's completely different type of search. How people used to search in Google on the desktop, and now they talk into their phone. It's much more conversational search. It's much more real sentences with stop words in there and stuff like this. And Google needs to find out what people are actually searching for to supply the best possible answer. Because don't forget, search engines have goals too, right? So they want to have happy users, so they need to understand what people are searching for. And RankBrain is machine learning powered assistance for that hummingbird to basically trying to dissect that sentence that the person's just said and trying to reformulate the query. So it's really just about query reformulation, query modification on the fly to reformulate that query into a query where they can actually supply a sufficient result. And of course, learning in the process, right? Because they get the user feedback again, and so they can see, is somebody refining a search after this, and really see, did I really answer this question or did I not? And basically this feedback is coming back and basically is refining that algorithm more and more, like really trying to do, okay, different entities and the words between it, okay, what he's now looking for, right? So this is what RankBrain is specifically, but I think it goes into a much more larger picture in the future that basically any user interaction, everything, people interacting with the search engine, interacting with different sites, like really finding out what makes users happy, what's the best possible result. And this is why it's not about individual ranking factors anymore, because Google doesn't want to rank the site the best that does the best SEO. Google wants to rank the site that is the best result for the user. And this is exactly what machine learning is trying to find out.
That's a great summary. Thanks, Jan.
So I just wanted to jump in quickly on this. I just wanted to say, we all in the industry tend to be very big geeks and nerds about, how Google really works, and how does this RankBrain really work, and how does it affect the ranking, and this element, is it really an algorithm per se, or is it part of the algorithm, and so on. But I just think that in general, when it comes to really doing our job, which is helping websites to rank higher, get more traffic, and make more money, running after the algorithm, since these are not the Alta Vista days anymore, it's a bit pointless, because it's more about running after what the algorithm should understand and accomplish. So instead of thinking like, is this is Google Penguin an algorithm per se, or is it integrated in the algorithm, or is it now rolling continuously, or is it released once a month? And at the end, who really cares about this? I mean, if can Google detect this thing in this way or in that other way? Who cares about how Google detects this thing? I could almost say, because if it doesn't detect it today, and you're doing something wrong, it's most likely going to detect it tomorrow. And if you're building a real company, you don't really need to care about what Google can detect today or what influences Google today, but what should Google influence, in 2 or 3 years from now, even. So what, as Marcus was saying, look at, if Google wants to show what is good for the user, there is no point in you, make an example, in, building very high trust links because you heard it's good towards a page that does not really have the right answer for what the Google user is searching for. So, instead of trying to run, not really running after the algorithm, but running after what Google should do for the users, that is probably the right way of thinking about things. And also to avoid, too much speculation about specific elements that don't really have the site sometimes.
Okay. I would agree with that as well, to be honest, Matteo. I think rather than trying to anticipate what Google wants, you should anticipate what your user wants.
Yeah, of course.
If you make a really good user experience, all the signals that Google gets from those users will be positive, and you will do much better in the long run.
Yeah, of course.
That would be my opinion.
So is that something you focus on quite a bit for iSlolly, Peter? Are there specific metrics that you kind of track on a weekly basis to try and measure that?
Yes, at the moment we're very heavily focused on user interaction and what does the user really want on our websites, and how can we provide that to them. I would say historically the company has probably not been the best at that, but that's absolutely our primary focus right now. In addition to that, we obviously, for those that have read our case studies in the past, have a really big issue with Penguin, where the site has been in Penguin since 2013, which was one of the main reasons why I was employed in the first place. So we still have that as a challenge. So obviously we do have a certain focus on links, but that's more cleaning up after systematic bad SEO in the past, rather than, as you say, chasing the algorithm.
I bet you wish you almost actually could start again with a fresh website rather than.
You know what? Sometimes it would almost be easier, but when your brand name is the same as your domain name, that's a very hard thing to do, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. And what about in relation to this, the future of SEO? Because we're all talking about user signals here and doing the right thing by your users, and Google being clever enough in the future to actually understand that that's probably delivering a good user experience and understanding what you do from that. Does that mean that the value of SEO is going to diminish, or are we simply talking about a different type of SEO in the future?
I don't think the value of SEO will diminish. I think we as SEOs will change, our responsibilities will change. We'll be way more involved with conversion, website experience, user experience, navigation on the website, and the whole focus on external links and such, that will hugely diminish, I think. That's historically been the main focus, but that's not what your focus should be. If you make an absolutely great website, people will link to that website. If it's a website that nobody needs, then nobody's going to link to it. And creating unnatural links is, long term at least, just not going to help.
I guess the challenge is whether or not that skill set is something that very technical SEOs will embrace, or maybe very link-orientated SEOs will embrace, because it's a different kind of skill set to be able to actually appeal to users and deliver a great user experience compared with certain technical skills. Marcus, obviously you've been around in the SEO world for a very long time. Do you feel that the skills that you have had to use to be a successful SEO through the years has changed significantly?
No, I don't think a lot has changed. I mean, it's always been about three things, and it's still these three things. You have to have a crawlable site, right? And it's got to be, you can view the content on all devices. You're going to be omni-device friendly. It's going to be fast loading, just what people expect from your site. You have to have good, engaging content. And this leads to three people actually recommending your content, whether it's with like the links from a blog or if it's on social media or whatever. A link is a link. You know, every link that is sending traffic is gold. And that's what it's always been about. I think what's happening right now is that you have the SEO community splitting in two ways right now. So you have the one group that understand the technical side of the game, and that really focus about what you, Peter, just said, you know, like with the user experience stuff and basically incorporating that in your code, like having a 100% perfect code and make it responsive content, responsive design and all that stuff, what I just said, also make it very fast to load and stuff like this. And on the other hand, you have the guys that formerly used to sell link building and now they sell content marketing, which is basically the same thing. They're still doing the same thing, they just called it differently. But I think the interesting thing is that they are now tapping into an industry where there's a lot of very successful businesses, especially large advertising agencies, PR agencies, who have been doing content marketing all along. They just not, you know, they just haven't maybe had the same word for it, but this is what they've been doing. And so it's really hard for especially those link building kind of agencies to evolve into this content marketing game, because it's a totally different game, you know, like formerly going to text link ads and just buying some links, put it into your basket and just check out, thank you very much. And now you all of a sudden you have to be creative and have to actually think of, you know, what people like, what are people interested in, how can I make my stuff appealing to my target audience, right? And this is what it's all about. But this is, I think, what's happening. And I've heard SEO is dead for, I mean, every year for the past, I think, like over 10 years. Even in 2000, you know, when Google was coming, it was SEO is dead. Now it's all like, now they do with the links. It's impossible to game this shit, blah, blah, blah. It's always been around, especially if it's like not a lot of topics in the industry right now. So it's always this topic that gets pulled out of the hat. But I think right now there's a lot of people like really like, holy shit, you know, I can't continue to do what I used to do. I got to evolve. How can I do this? And all of a sudden you have to have a different skill set, but it's only those people who haven't done it the right way all along, and basically just like a lot of with the link selling people, there's a lot of scam going on, right? So, I mean, this is what happened, and it's just evolution. And I think it's great because, you know, with the game getting harder, it's a lot of people get seeded out. So the good people survive and prevail. And so I love it.
You love it as well, Peter?
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with everything Marcus just said. There's a lot of people out there that are still either doing traditional link building or they're pretending to be content outreaching, and actually they're still just link building because they're paying some blog owner for a guest post, as they call it, which is nothing more but, you know, placed link. And yeah, ultimately, the people that have always been doing it right, as Marcus said, will stay around, and all the others will start falling, because that's not how success is built anymore, luckily.
I think it's important also for companies to understand this big change. You know, as I said before, we work in competitive markets like, you know, insurance, travel, banks, mortgages, loans, and we work with big clients, big corporate clients. And for example, we of course try to build their authority, and we do very expensive content marketing initiatives and very broad. And to make an example for you, we did one last year for a big hotel booking site, which is part of the biggest international group in hotel booking. And we did essentially a purely, let's say, for the pure goal of building authority to the site, we made, let's say, I cannot go into too much detail, but like, let's say a very helpful guide for a very specific kind of users, which we then released. And then the client, essentially what happened is that internally during a board meeting, the press department showed this initiative as the most successful press initiatives and communication initiative for the brand for that year. And that's when the digital marketing officer stood up and said, like, wait a moment, I was the one that was doing this with a very limited budget, and this was not part of your media money, let's say. So this is basically the problem we face very often when we try to do these kind of initiatives, is that nowadays there should not be anymore a very thick wall between, this is the online marketing department, so let's throw them a few peanuts. And then on the other hand, we have the big media department and press department, because right now there is not anymore really online marketing versus marketing. Like, sometimes we do initiatives that are link-based that end up on the printed press, for example. So those are not purely online marketing initiatives, what I mean? But it's very hard to educate the client about this, I think, because the most big brands also, they still think about, okay, this is the SEO people, they do this kind of link stuff, and that's how it used to work 10 years ago. And, it's very hard to go and explain to them that there is no such thing as a manual, purely, shitty link exchange stuff, and everything is now more into the communication side of things. They should take out the big money from their pocket, basically, to finance also these kind of initiatives.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's still very much, unfortunately, at the moment, there's a lot of big companies that perhaps do things like get a new website designed and have it visually looking good, and then when everything's complete afterwards, say, okay, give this to the SEO person to SEO. And they don't involve an SEO person at the very beginning with strategy. Yeah. And
I think actually right now, today, is like Ajax is the new Flash. I would say, now Google says, yeah, we can crawl Ajax, don't worry about this and that. And there was like a moment, 1 year ago, in which all of a sudden all the sites were decent when they came to us. There was not anymore, stupid Flash websites. But now there is a lot of one-page, very good-looking Ajax-based flashy website. And then it turns out that single one page is a news website with 50,000 pieces of content, all with the same URL, basically, because everything is made on Ajax. And then Google says, no, don't worry, we can now crawl and execute JavaScript, everything is fine, you don't need to worry anymore. The client says, oh, Google said they don't have to worry anymore. And then it's very hard to explain to them that, Google can say in a press release that they can do everything very nicely with JavaScript and Ajax, but maybe you should not really rely on making the job hard because Google is good anyway. You should make the job easier, as Marcus said before also. So in general, on the one hand, the technology is there are a lot of sites that come out of the box that are already technically fine, let's say, not extremely good, but technically fine when it comes to SEO. But right now there is this new one-page website Ajax wave with all these fireworks on the page that is really hard sometimes for Google to digest, I think.
Absolutely. And the best part, they have the own framework, AngularJS. So it's like, oh, this is coming from Google, so it must be SEO friendly. It's like, no, it's not, right? I mean, you still got to do it right. If you do it wrong, it's just completely wrong, as you said. Good point, yeah.
Well, also in the news this week is that Majestic have announced that they're going to 3D print the internet on the International Space Station. Last year, they shared their majestic landscapes, but now it's one step for Dixon, one giant leap for mankind. So these models seem physically interesting, but do they have any real relevance for SEOs? I mean, can SEOs maybe take a domain that's obviously performing quite well in their industry and have a look at this 3D model of a good domain in their industry and say, well, that's how a good domain should be structured in terms of citation flow and trust flow and number of links. I see you nodding slightly there, Peter. Have you got any thoughts on this one here?
This is a tricky one. I think the 3D model itself, I think, is a bit of a gimmick. I think Dixon Jones has been really smart there. As Matteo alluded to it earlier at the beginning of the show, I think it's just great link bait. And I think that's all it really is. The 3D model itself is not of any use to any business, really. But as far as analyzing the backlink profile of your competitors goes, there's a degree of use in that, but I wouldn't say there's as much use in that as there would have been in the past. And personally, I think it's better to focus on yourself than on looking at your competitors and seeing where they got links from, because you're not going to, or you shouldn't really go and chase those links anyway. You should be producing good content or stuff that people really want to link to, or that just naturally attracts those links, rather than trying to do that in an unnatural way, which ultimately is exactly the opposite of what we should be doing. Unfortunately, in the industry, people still do exactly the wrong thing, and that's, let's look at my biggest competitor. They've got links from these 10,000 websites. Let's now go out and build links on all these 10,000 websites. That's a bit 1995 SEO, or India SEO as we call it, really.
1995. Marcus, can you tell us about 1995?
Marcus O'Hill.
I didn't start in 1995. This was very developed country in Germany at that time. Yeah, I used to build links before Google evaluated links, but 1995 was way before I started doing this business.
Matteo, I saw you nodding away a bit there. Do you agree with what Peter was saying there about really the best thing to do is actually focus more on your website now and your user experience now, rather than actually focus on what the competition is doing in terms of link structure?
Well, I think that you should definitely, first of all, focus on your site, because if you don't have a well-made site that correctly answers the questions the users have and satisfies their user intents, then you're starting with a car which has a broken engine. But I still think that it's important to put a lot of gasoline in this car, which means building the authority for your site. Looking at what other sites have in terms of links can give you an idea of how much gasoline the other competitors have already bought in the past or somehow gotten for free somehow, but still investing money probably in it. And it will tell you how hard the competition is. In these terms, the first, I think, and most important thing to do is to really understand who your competitors are. And your competitors are not the top 10 sites that are ranking for your top keywords, because maybe 50% of them can be just spam sites that will be gone next week, and maybe the same guy that is running them will just throw up another site that will run again for one more week. So if you want to really go and look under the hood of your competitors, you should first of all be sure that you're looking at the same kind of competitors. Companies that have more or less the same business model, that want to be in the game for more or less the same purposes, and that have more or less the same kind of budgets you can imagine. And then you have your real competitors. And then, what you want to do probably, if you look at their links, is to get a few ideas of how they acquire them. And eventually you can also have an idea of if you've been in the game for quite some time and you always see the same sites that are there together with you and you think that they really are your competitors. If you look at them and you see that they've been specifically aggressive in some ways, maybe, I don't know, they built a lot of links and authority towards specific internal pages, while you would assume it's normal that a site doesn't have so many links pointed towards an internal page, let's say. And you see that this is a common tendency in your industry. And more than a single competitor, like looking at these stats can give you an idea of what is the average competition level in the industry. For example, I was working for many years. I was working for 5 years only in the online poker and online gambling segment. And of course, the stuff you see there also from big brands is much more aggressive than what you see in the big brands in the insurance niche, for example. They're both competitive niches, but you can be sure that in the online gambling world, even if you're a big player, I don't know, Ladbrokes or Poker Stars or Titan Poker or whatnot, you can get away with more aggressive techniques because the average, the cleanest site is still quite dirty there. While in insurance, for example, which is also very competitive, the sites are on average much cleaner, big brands. So this also tells you a bit where you can draw the line and how far you can push it before being afraid of Google's, shutting you down or thinking bad of you, let's say, compared to the other people.
That's great points. Great points. Marcus, do you have a certain way of actually going about researching competitors, and do you actually try and identify a certain number of competitors and benchmark performance against competitors? How do you approach that?
Again, I don't have clients, so it's can't give you a best practice. Of course, I'm not doing this for any clients.
Yeah, just in terms of advising other people.
How to go about doing research?
Yeah, just in terms of identifying competitors and how many competitors a website maybe should look to actually benchmark their performance against, if that's important to do over a monthly basis, or maybe just every few months going to revisit how.
Okay.
performance?
So the first thing I would do is definitely similar web, of course. I mean, that's probably the best source of traffic to actually get a good sense of, where they're getting their traffic from, how much traffic they actually have, which pages the traffic is actually going to, which links are actually sending traffic. The next thing is looking at stuff like search metrics, of course, visibility graph, actually see where they're ranking, actually maybe do it with an own keyword set, basically have different competitors in my own keyword set, and basically seeing how I fare against those competitors. And the third one would be TF-IDF analysis. I think that is probably the most, really the best type of analysis right now to really see, how I'm faring against my competitors in regards to, it's like the whole semantic search thing. If I'm really, do I have the most holistic content on any certain topic? And so it's probably always these three things I would look at, always similar web, search metrics, visibility graph, or also with Systrix or whatever, who's supporting sort of stuff like this. And lastly, of course, TF-IDF analysis shows immense value in really trying to find out how can I get there, how can I be better? So this is what I would go about things.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, just to close up today, happy 10th birthday to Twitter. But what can we expect from Twitter in the next 10 years? There was an article in the Scotsman newspaper published saying, just that, what can we expect from Twitter in the future? And certainly they've gone through quite a few changes in the last year or so. Marcus was saying earlier on that Twitter's not so popular in Germany, so certainly it's not going to be as important in certain countries. Matteo, I saw a slight nod there. Do you think that Twitter has a lot to do in terms of catching up with other social networks? But generally, is this something that isn't that relevant to what you're actively doing at the moment yourself?
Well, we are based in Italy, and I can tell you that also in Italy, Twitter is not that popular. I mean, it is a big, let's say, quite popular when it comes to second screen. So it's, I would say that for Italian users, it's definitely a second screen app, let's say, that also big media channels have started now to, encourage users to use, because that's so they can take away the, user-generated content and put it to their TV shows for free. But otherwise, it's used for, news sources, journalists, let's see, probably on average, a higher educated people, I would say, in Italy. But I would not say it is like a mass communication tool today. And also for, different kind of web properties is not so powerful here in Italy. But in general, when it comes to the birthday, I think that it's, it's growing older. I think it's going through puberty right now, Twitter, more or less. So it has understood probably the things have to change, but it's not really sure what to change and how to use the new things that are changing. Being able to write longer tweets, for example. I don't know. Maybe that will take away the unique feature of Twitter at this point, because then it will become more kind of a Tumblr at the point.
Or Medium.
Or Medium, exactly. But looking a bit worse, because Medium is a bit more sleek, and that is a problem, I think, with Twitter, that doesn't really know where to go, I think. And it's, as I said, big success second screen, big success when some specific topic all of a sudden has to be discussed all together in a big messy conversation. But otherwise, I do not see it, really making it through for the next 10 years, at least here in Europe, if something big doesn't happen. I don't know. But, 10 years are a long, long time. So it's very far to see, what Twitter will be like when it's 20 years old. I have no idea, honestly.
10 years is such an incredible long time in the digital world. I mean, the majority of people weren't using Facebook then. SEOs were probably still swapping reciprocal links to actually try and rank. Maybe some are still trying to do that. But it's very, very difficult to imagine what's going to happen in the next 10 years or so. Peter, do you have any thoughts on Twitter's use as a marketing tool? Because by the sound of it, you're involved in marketing in general as well as SEO.
Yeah, that's correct. Like Matteo earlier said, he has a challenge with a lot of his clients or businesses in general, that they separate their media teams and online marketing teams, traditional marketing teams. We don't do that in our company. We have one marketing team. It's a it's a team that focuses on traditional marketing, online marketing, everything. It's all the same people. We don't see that as separate channels. But to go back to Twitter, I think, to agree with Matthew as well, I think they're going through a bit of an identity crisis. I think they've seen really explosive growth in the first X number of years that they're present. Obviously, they're now in decline as the news reports, but I think they're kind of struggling to monetize Twitter as well as a platform like, for example, Facebook, where it's much easier to monetize due to the user data they keep from their users, the length of the content, how visual the content is there, etc. I'm not really sure where Twitter would go with that, because in a way they've almost created a platform they've almost limited themselves. And if they remove that limitation and become more like other platforms, then they might potentially even lose more users, because, again, like others have said, they will lose that uniqueness and they will just become another generic social media platform. In terms of who uses it, for me, Twitter is mainly used for marketers, news source, and then there's maybe a small group of users that uses it to communicate on a personal level, but it's not really a great platform for that, to be honest. It's nice for networking as a SEO or a PR person, especially. It's very heavily used by PRs and journalists, but other than that, I think it's a tricky one. It's a very limiting platform, but it's a limitation they themselves have made by their own design almost. So they're a victim of their own success. Okay.
Marcus, you obviously got 21,000 followers on Twitter. So, I mean, it would appear that that network's, fairly important for you. But would you say that that's not the case, and there are other social platforms that are more important for you?
I'm actually not very social on social media. I don't tend to, have conversations in 140 pixel lengths because it's just very hard, right? I'm a one-to-one guy. I'm a guy who likes to have a face-to-face conversation. I'm not even a phone talking guy. I really like to have a face-to-face conversation. So, and especially talking about SEO, it's such a complex topic. It just doesn't serve well doing this just in 140 pixel. There's so much stuff you can just not transfer, and so much stuff that can be misunderstood and stuff like this. But I still love Twitter. Big Twitter fan. We were part of the German Accelerator program, and we had a U.S. office in San Francisco, and it was right in the Twitter building. So for 3 months, we had an office right in the Twitter building. So I totally love these guys. And of course, I'm totally amazed by what Twitter has enabled in the world, right? It finally gave people a voice. It gave people a chance to actually express, their feelings and stuff like this. And it has ignited stuff like, the whole African revolution thing. I'm missing the English word here, but I think you know what I'm talking about, right? Everything from Tahrir place. And stuff like this. This was Twitter enabling this kind of stuff, and so it's just amazing to see how people are actually using this social network. They're totally in an identity crisis right now. It's like how to monetize that. Although I gotta say, Twitter advertising works great. I worked a little bit with Twitter advertising, and I think it works quite well. It's a good bang for the buck. So, but it's still hard to monetize that on a larger scale, and especially having very potent adversaries with Facebook and the likes. So it is very, very hard for them. I don't think it's the way, to extend tweets over 140 pixel lengths, because this is their thing, right? I wouldn't want them to become like a Medium or Tumblr or whatever, because that's just not them anymore, and they're losing their sort of thing, their heart and core. But it's definitely a tough challenge for them. And, I still have a profile on MySpace, or I had a profile on MySpace. Does everybody still know MySpace, right? It's dead, right? So we've seen this time and time again, platforms coming in, people storming a platform, using it heavily, and all of a sudden it's gone, right? So, for example, in this case, I love Facebook's initiative. They always say, we got to be the ones that built the Facebook killer. right? You, Facebook, want to be the guys that built the Facebook killer, because then nobody else will, right? And this is how you should approach these things. And I think that Twitter hasn't done this for a very long time, and they're really struggling to, to crawl back. And it's just very hard, because you do this on a very high level, on a very large scale. So it's a crazy thing to do. But I wish them all the best, because, I hate it, to have like a new platform coming up, and you gotta have to collect new followers all over again, right? So I skipped Instagram. I haven't used Snapchat at all, and I don't want to be a Snapchat user, right? I want to stay with Twitter, and I don't want to go to the daily grind again and building up a followership again and stuff like this. So I love Twitter. Hang in there. You can do it.
Well, hopefully, if there are challenges, it gets through them, it gets through the next few years, because it certainly is a platform that I've loved as well. I remember back in, I think it was about 2009 or so, I think before Google Caffeine, people were turning to Twitter for real-time search. And I think Twitter probably even initiated Google Caffeine, because Google were obviously delivering authoritative old results based upon their old link formula at the time, rather than actually delivering fresh information. So you could maybe even say that Twitter was responsible for Google evolving faster and becoming more progressive with their algorithm. But anyway, we've covered so many points today, and it's over time already, and I really appreciate you all being here and sharing so much wonderful information. Just in terms of finishing off, can you perhaps think of one takeaway from what we've discussed today that our listeners can actually maybe think about further and perhaps implement in their business? So maybe starting off with Matteo, if that's okay.
Yes, I just think that like one of the main takeaways that people should not obsess over Google's algorithm. They should obsess over their website and their users. I think this is the number one point we can draw. Brilliant. Okay, and where can our viewers find you? Oh, well, the users, your viewers can find me on bizapmedia.com, in which we have a blog in which I normally write, or they find me on Twitter as Matteo_Monari, and they can see me at the Brighton SEO very soon. Wonderful, and I look forward to seeing you there as well, Matteo. See you. Also with us today is Peter. So Peter, what's your one closing thoughts for today?
I think if you're a site that relies heavily on traffic from Google News, then you need to make sure that you're delivering content that's useful to people. As the sites, I think, that are currently just producing link bait for the sake of traffic without really providing anything useful to users at all. And there's a lot of sites like that these days. They're just slowly going to fade away due to people just disabling them. And either Google Now or Google News on your desktop, you can actually do that now as well, etc. So great thoughts. Don't make rubbish content, basically.
make content that's actually relevant for people for a change. Yeah. And Peter, where can people get hold of you as well?
You can find me on Peter Gersbergen at Twitter, but I don't use Twitter very often, so I'm mainly found just at isolate.com, working hard.
Great stuff. I'm sure you wouldn't have it any other way.
No.
And also with us today was Marcus. Marcus, thanks so much for joining us. How would you leave things for our viewers?
Yeah, of course. I mean, the religiously repeated advice, always focus on the user. I think this can't be said enough, but I would always say never stop learning. This is, I think, the most important part. This thing is evolving so fast, and it's such a great industry to be in. So yeah, never stop learning.
Never stop learning. Great advice there. And where can our viewers get hold of you?
Of course, onpage.org. More than welcome to join. We also have a free version of onpage.org, onpage.org free. And I'm more than happy to take a look around. You can reach me at m@m.de. That's really my email address. As I said, I've been around for quite a while. m@m.de and or my personal blog, mediadonis.net, although I don't really blog a lot as well. But it just turned 10 years old, so I think I got to keep it around. But yeah, onpage.org.
That's I think the most impressive domain name that's been on TWiO so far. So you win that award.
Oh, I don't have the domain. I just have the email address, but that's a long story.
Right. Okay. I was assuming you did, but based upon the letter. Okay.
Oh, long story.
Okay. I don't think we've got time for the story, have we? maybe next time, or maybe look it up elsewhere. But yeah, thanks so much for joining us. I'm David Bain, Head of Growth at Authoritas. Actionable big data for enterprise content marketing. Sign up for a demo of our platform at authoritas.com. And you can also find me interviewing online marketing gurus over at digitalmarketingradio.com. Now, if you're watching this show as a recording, remember to watch the next show live. So head over to This Week in Organic and be part of the live audience for the next show. But for those of you watching live, we also have an audio podcast of previous shows. So again, sign up to email updates at thisweekinorganic.com and you'll receive the podcast links from there too. But until we see you again, have a fantabulous Easter weekend and thank you all for joining us. Thanks everyone. Great to
Happy Easter.
Thank you.